Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. In this video, we will be discussing how Lorenzo Insigne and Napoli have parted ways, if there were any similarities with Marek Hamsik, and what does that mean for Napoli's future. Now, I've already expressed what I thought about Lorenzo Insigne on Instagram. Go follow official Napoli Talk on there. While you're at it, smash that like and subscribe to Napoli Talk for more videos about Napoli. Now, what I said on Instagram in summary was that life is about decisions, not necessarily wrong and right. There's just two ways to look at things, and when such a crazy offer comes to you, then it's right for you to, I think about your family and accept that offer. Another thing to note is that Lorenzo Insigne gave us 10 years of his life and now is leaving to a club that is in no way, shape or form a rival to Napoli. So anyone that thinks that Lorenzo Insigne is a traitor or he doesn't care about Napoli, think about what he's done in the last 10 years. There's players that are born and raised in Napoli that have not once worn the jersey or have worn it for 1 or 2 years. So to call Lorenzo Insigne a traitor or anything like that, or think that he doesn't care, is just preposterous. He just got a really good offer. The other side of it is Napoli were offering him 3.5 million. He wanted 6 million. I don't think he's worth that 6 million that he was asking in the European market, because otherwise any other team in Europe would have gone and offered that to him. But clearly they didn't. So no one thinks that he's worth 6 million in Europe. He's just not that kind of game changer in Europe. In America, that's a different story. He's going to sell so many t-shirts, he's going to decide so many games in the MLS. He is worth what maybe Toronto is offering. In Europe, not so much. In Europe, he's worth 3.5 million, and 3.5 million is not a bad salary. But when he's asking for 6 million, that's for a player that decides not only games, because Lorenzo Insigne has decided games in the past, but he's a player that will guarantee you Champions League football. He's a player that will guarantee you several trophies. Now, Insigne has not really done that for Napoli. We've only won 2 Coppa Italias and a Super Cup in recent years. So is that enough to justify a 6 million salary? I don't think so. Lorenzo Insigne over the last 2 years has scored a lot of goals, but his last 6 months have not been great. If this team manages to get top 4, they will have done it essentially without his contribution, or without his 100% contribution, which is good looking forward. And I think that's something that Napoli look at. They're saying, look, Insigne is maybe not the make or break in terms of us making Champions League football. Napoli simply do not have the resources to spend 6 million a year in salary on a player reaching 31 for the next 4 years as well. We've kind of done that with Mertens, offering him 4.5 million when he was already 32. And we saw that whilst Mertens is still a very important player, obviously at some point you need someone young to come in. We got Victor Osimhen because Dries Mertens simply cannot play 38 games of the Serie A in the season. He needs to rest. He needs to come off after 60 minutes. He needs to be managed. So you shouldn't be offering 6 million to a player that 2 years down the line needs to be managed in that way. I personally think that what we have in the team right now might already be enough, because we have Elmas, who I think has the right characteristics to replace Insigne, because he's very good in between the lines. And, you know, he's got a knack for goal as well. He's discovering the net this year. And I think that if Insigne does leave and Elmas is given that position on the left wing as his, he might develop into a really, really important player. And we might already have the backup to Elmas in Chucky Lozano, a natural left winger. Now, I think that Chucky Lozano might leave Napoli because of his recent statements and because of his salary as well. 4.5 million for a player that might sit on the bench. It's just not what Napoli want at the moment. Now, why is that? Because Napoli recorded a loss of 60 million euros in the last year. That is a lot of money, and Napoli only have about 100 million in reserve. That means 2 more years of this, and Napoli are in big trouble. We might have to start getting into debt, which is not something that Napoli wants to do. So we have to basically operate as a net zero club in the years that we don't have Champions League football, and then build up that cash reserve and invest when we do get Champions League football. And that's because Champions League football cannot be taken for granted anymore. There's just simply too many competitive teams in Italy. It could go either way any season. Now, to try to recover 60 million euros a year is a lot. I'm sure that stadium, the back end of 2022 and moving on, they'll be 100% open. That will contribute massively. So let's say that in terms of salaries, Napoli need to recover 30 million. We have to reduce the player salaries by 15 million, which is a cost of 30 million on Napoli's books. I think already getting rid of players like Fauzi Gulam, who earned 2.5, and that's 5 million on Napoli's books. Getting rid of Manolas, who was on 4 million, and that's 8 millions on Napoli's book. Reducing Mertens' salary to maybe 2.5. I think Mertens will accept that. That's already going to be a lot. And then getting rid of Insigne, who's 4.6 and wanted 6 million. That's going to be a huge factor in reducing Napoli's cost. And obviously we talked about Lozano as well. So I think all these guys moving on or reducing their salaries will contribute to Napoli getting back to the level that they want to operate in. Now, does that mean that Napoli sell Insigne and sell Lozano and that's it and we just rely on Elmas? No, absolutely not. But you have to realize that Insigne is considered a cost and a cost only, because you pay the salary and then you're not really going to sell him on. He's going to be 33, 34 in a few years down the line. No one's going to invest money into buying him. Whereas if you let go of Insigne and you buy a 23 or a 24-year-old, even if you have to spend 40, 50 million on him, in 4 or 5 years down the line, you can recover that cost. So it's very clear to me why Napoli operated the way they did. And do expect in the summer Napoli to buy a player of that kind of value, especially if we let go of Chucky Lozano. Then again, Chucky Lozano could have a great 6 months from here on out, and Napoli might decide to keep him. Now, obviously, now that Insigne's left, what's the link between Napoli and the fans, Napoli and the people? Napoli do need to seriously consider what they're doing with the youth team and what they're doing with homegrown talent, because I think if we had 3 or 4 players that were from Naples performing at a really good level within the team, then I think there would have been much less pressure on either side to renew this contract. There would have been a lot less disappointment in the fans that Lorenzo Insigne is leaving. So it is something that Napoli going forward needs to address. And finally, guys, I wanted to clarify something about Insigne and Marek Hamsik. Was there any similarity in the way that they left? And how come Marek Hamsik got a lot less criticism for leaving Napoli? And it is very clear when you look at the minutes that Marek Hamsik was playing in his last year and a half at Napoli. Let's take a look at the 17-18 season. And you can see here that Marek Hamsik was clearly not playing the full 90 minutes anymore of a game. He was being constantly substituted on the 60th minute mark, and he at this point was still quite young. He was 29 at this point. He had the energy to do all these games, but you had a player like Zielinski who was coming through the ranks who needed game time. Then we get to the next season, and you can see here that he wasn't even starting 1 every 3 games. He was just being put on the bench, and being the captain of Napoli, you can't be happy with that situation. Yet Marek remained extremely professional, and an offer finally came from China, which was not only economically very, very good for Hamsik, but also it was a 20 million fee for Napoli. That is also a huge difference. Marek Hamsik left to not only save his career, because he wanted more playing time and he was still young, but he also gave Napoli something back. He gave them 20 million. Insigne leaving on his last 6 months of contract means Napoli get 0 out of him in terms of transfer fee, and it's a very different situation. Insigne was still part of this team. He was still an integral part of this team. He was still playing full 90 minutes, a starter anytime, and really the only reason that would push him out of this situation is the money, because sporting wise everything was going well for him. However, Insigne has done a lot in recent years to regain the love and trust of the Napoli fans, as I talked about in a previous video, link in description. So even though he's made this decision, I think the majority of Napoli fans are respecting it, and the proof came when he came off injured against Sampdoria and the fans inside the stadium clapped him and didn't jeer him, unlike maybe it would have been a few years ago. Anyways guys, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe if you want to see more Napoli talk. Leave a comment below about what you think of this whole Insigne situation, who you think is best equipped to replace him, and as always, Forza Napoli sempre.